Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning, and welcome to this Specialist Trading educational presentation. Now, today I'd like to talk to you about identifying cluster setups. For many of you, you've never heard of this term before, but this is a trading phenomenon that happens over and over and over again. Unfortunately, when most traders do see these type of setups, they have very hard time or difficulty in trading them. For example, as we look at this chart right here in CVS, this was just this past month coming into January, we see here that most traders would view this as a stock in a downtrend. And I'm sure you would all say, well, Steve, you always teach us to trade with the trend, right? So if this is a downtrend, we shouldn't be buying anything here. We should actually be selling it. But oftentimes in the short-term downtrend, you'll see or have a strategy that generates a lot of setups, one after the other, okay, as the stock, future, or currency pair is going lower. So this is why traders have a difficult time with this, because these are what are called cluster setups. These are a number of setups individually all bundled up together, usually in a counter trend. Now the trouble with this is that many times, depending on what strategy you have that generates these signals, these are high probability setups. The trouble is you have to have a strategy that is able to generate them, and you have to know where to buy, because obviously some of these signals are a lot better than others. But as we stated, usually they're high probability setups. As long as you know how to trade them, you should be able to do very well with them. Now the beauty of this is that our platform, the PTS Primo Charting Platform, actually teaches you how to identify and how to trade these cluster setups. So you're going to see this all today in detail in today's educational presentation. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo. I'm the president and founder of Specialist Trading. About 12 years ago, I teamed up with Pro Trader Strategies with just one goal in mind, and that was simply to educate traders around the world. And I'm happy to say now that we educate traders in over 115 countries around the world and in every state in the United States. Now, I know some of you would say, well, what's the purpose of educating someone? Why don't you just, spit out buy and sell signals? Why don't you just tell us in some blog or on your website what to buy or what to sell on a nightly basis? Give us some signals, Well, if you think of it, that's the way the entire industry is based. You go to a chat room and they tell you what to buy or sell, or to a trading room, or you go to a blog or see what they're saying on TV, or you look at the earnings or the economic news, and that's how you make your decisions, right? Based on someone or something else. So the entire industry is based on you following what some so-called trading expert is doing. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Why? Well, because the statistics show that 80 to 85% of all traders fail. Now, 80 to 85% of all traders are following someone or something else and telling them what to do. So obviously, it doesn't work, because if it did work, then it would be more the other way around. 80 to 85% of all traders were successful. So what's happening? What's happening is most traders, myself included, when I first started out, I did the exact same thing. Most traders take themselves out of the game because we've all been taught, well, you should listen to someone else and follow their success, and that's how you become successful. And this turns into a crutch, because then we just blindly follow along whatever they're doing, because after all, they must know what they're doing, right? Now, I'm not saying that they aren't successful or they don't trade well, but the thing is that no two traders should ever trade alike. You see, everyone comes in with a different temperament. Some traders like a lot of risk. Other traders like minimal risk. Some traders like to trade 100 times a day. Other traders like to trade once a month. So regardless of how successful someone's technique or method or strategy or system is, if it doesn't fit your persona, you're not going to make money. For example, I remember once teaching a student of mine years ago, before I started Specialist Trading, how I personally trade. And I sat with them for a good week or two, showed them all the signals and everything, how I traded. And then ultimately, that student couldn't make money, even when I was making money off the same signals. Why was that? Well, because they couldn't trade the same way as me. They didn't like to trade with that much risk. I was able to take on more risk than them. They couldn't sleep at night knowing that they would take on that type of risk. So you see, it doesn't matter how well or how prosperous someone is. If it doesn't fit your temperament, you should not be taking that same signal or that same path. That's where education comes in. If you can be educated on things that have shown the test of time, then you're qualified to make your own trading decisions. And this is how you become a consistent trader, in my opinion, on your own. I've known when I used to work on the floor of the stock exchange, I knew hundreds of traders who made relatively large amounts of money in a small amount of time. And guess what? Only a handful of those traders are still around. Now, these traders are making their own decisions. They're very simple rules they follow, and they don't listen to an outside source. They don't look at the news. They don't watch guys on TV. They simply look at the chart in front of them. And that's what I'm going to try and share with you in today's educational presentation. Now, before we begin, as always, we're first required by law to share this with you. So please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results today in identifying and trading with these cluster setups. But please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the performance results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Also, please remember that all examples, since we are an educational company, all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, another great way to get education on a daily basis is to follow us on Twitter. There's our handle right there, abbreviation for Specialist Trading. Every day I post different educational information, somewhere from little bits of financial wisdom I post to actual signals our strategies have generated, and I try to explain what they were based on and why they were either successful or whether they didn't work at all. So lots of free education. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now remember, we're different from other educational webinars you may have gone to in that we are not going to tell you what we think the market's going to do next week. Why? Well, two things. Firstly, I have no idea. I'm not going to tell you what I think the best stock is or what the best future is or currency pair. I have no idea. They're up to you to decide. Remember, that's the way you become consistent. I would be doing you a disservice, once again, falling into that trap of telling you what to buy or what to sell. But that's not what you're going to hear today. We're going to teach you so that you can make your own decisions, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're going to keep things as simple as possible. Most of the traders I know, like I said, have 3 to 5 rules, okay? That's about it. It doesn't take a lot of really, highly convoluted indicators and tons of, theory that you have no idea what it's based off to become a consistent trader. You just have to keep your trading simple, and that's how you get onto that road to consistency. So as you can see here, my goal is not to force feed you signals, not to tell you what the market's going to do, not to tell you what to buy or sell. It's simply to teach you how to trade with a specialist edge. When I first started trading some 44 years ago, if you can believe that, 44 years ago, I started trading on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. All right? And guess what? I was doing probably the exact same things you're doing now. We didn't have chat rooms or trading rooms back then because we didn't have the internet back then. But we had news subscription services. I subscribed to all of them, okay? I listened to all the trading gurus on TV. I had tons of indicators, and nothing worked. I would have wins every once in a while, and then I'd have losses, which gave them all back. So trust me, anything you're probably using right now, I used some 4 decades ago. So my goal is to teach you the same edge that my mentors taught me that has sustained me, and it's rooted in simplicity and simply in listening to what the market wants to do. That's the specialist edge. Now, we're going to go through a lot of slides here today. I have over 100 slides today to share with you, but please, I don't want to stop at every slide to answer a question. We'll be here far too long. I know it's a busy day today, so if you have a question, oftentimes if you wait for the next slide, your question will be answered. But if it's not, please write it down and try to remember it. I promise I'll get to each and every one of your questions at the very end of today's class. The only question I will answer is this being recorded? Yes, it is. Each and every one of you will be sent a link to this recording so you can watch this presentation over and over again at your own leisure, okay? All right, so remember, once again, if you have any questions, please wait till the end of today's class to ask. With that stated, let us begin today's educational presentation. So let's first start out with a question of my own. I want to ask you, what exactly are cluster setups? I know a lot of you have seen them before. Some of you have not even heard of them before. Here's the standard definition. Cluster setups are multiple strategy signals, generally considered to be high probability setups. That's the key here. High probability setups that are generated in a consecutive manner, one after another. Now, I know a lot of you would say, well, Steve, I've been trading the strategy or the way I trade. I don't get a lot of cluster setups. That's because cluster setups are usually generated in what we call a pullback method. All right, a pullback method is a specific type or a category of trading. And what it calls for is to determine the overall trend. Let's say you have an overall uptrend. Well, a pullback method looks to buy when you have a sell-off or a decline in an overall uptrend. The same way it looks to sell in an overall downtrend, but it looks to sell in a bounce or a little rally in an overall downtrend. That's where you get these cluster setups. You still have to have a strategy that has a high probability for these setups, but you'll find them usually in pullback methods, okay? Now, if you're not familiar with what pullback methods are, let's look at this generic chart here. Here's a pullback buy scenario, okay? You'll have an overall uptrend, but then all of a sudden you have this counter trend where most traders think that, well, I guess we've topped out. I guess that's the end of it. We're overbought. It looks like we're going lower. Maybe we're in a full-fledged downtrend. Well, this is actually called the pullback area, okay? And so what you want to do, if you have a standard pullback method, you usually generate one buy signal. But with cluster signals, you'll have buys all the way in this pullback area right here. And the reason why these are high probability setups is because if it's a proper pullback method, well, then the trend will resume and you'll be buying somewhere along the lows of this little sell-off. It works the same way to the downside. You'll have a strong overall downward trend, but then it's usually met with a little bounce or a rally. Now, most people will think, well, that's the bottom of the market. We got to buy now. But actually, that's just a pullback. This little pullback area is where you want to be selling. Now, if you just have a signal, a single setup, well, that's fine. But usually with clusters, you'll have a series of signals all the way up. Remember, they have to be high probability setups, though, because if they are, well, you'll be able to reap the benefits of the continuation to the downside. All right, so let's look at this example here in UPS. Here's an older example of how this works. Most traders looking at this would say, well, I think we topped out. I went to that chat room. The guy says this is so overbought, and we've hit some type of real strong resistance here with the institution. So I've got to sell this. It's topped out, and for all intents and purposes, we're starting in a downward trend here. So I don't want to buy this at all. Well, that's the way most traders trade. That's the way why most traders lose. With our courses, with pullbacks, we find out if we're in an overall trend. And right here, we actually are in an overall trend. So this is not the beginning of a downtrend. This is simply a pullback. So this is where we want to have and find a cluster of setups. As you can see here, this particular strategy not only generated one, but it generated two buy signals. So that qualifies as a cluster. All you need are two or more. You can have 2, you can have 10, you can have 20 signals. All of those from 2 on, though, are considered a cluster. And as you can see, that was the place to buy. All right, it wasn't the beginning of a downtrend. It was these high probability cluster signals and cluster setups generating a really nice buy area. That's worked to the downside as well. A lot of traders looking at this older chart, United Airlines, would say, well, Steve, I follow the institutions. I took that $10,000 course on what the institutions are doing, and they're always right. The big money bought right here. That's why it won't go any lower. We're starting to go higher now. So I'm going to buy this. We must be in an uptrend, right? Well, in all actuality, the overall trend is still down, and this is just a pullback to the upside. This is where you want to look to sell to get those high probability setups. And if we're looking for clusters, we see that we have one signal here, another one right there. So that qualifies as a cluster. Now we went down a little bit, but then we went back up. But there's another sell signal and another one. So we have a second cluster. Okay? These are high probability setups. And we all know what happened to United Airlines after that. It fell out of bed. This was in March of this last year. So let's go back and look at the first chart I shared with you. This was CVS. And this was from roughly this past month. Now we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 setups, all right? Now, these are cluster setups because we have a cluster of these setups all generated together. Now, obviously, some are better than the other. If we look right here, if we would have bought on the very first or second one right here of the signal, of the setups, I should say, well, look what would have happened. Most likely, we would have been stopped out. All right, so obviously some are better than others. How do we determine which ones to buy and which ones to discard? Well, we have several different ways for entry in our courses. Let me share with you one of the simplest but powerful ways to trade these cluster setups. All right, so here's what you want to do. When you get a cluster of buy signals, you want to look at the signal that is above the arrow And what you want to do is cut it in half by 50%, okay? Now, if we close in that bottom half, in that bottom portion, then that qualifies as a setup that you can buy. Now, there's different ways to buy it. Once again, you could buy it on the close, you could place a limit at the low, or you could place a limit somewhere below that. Either way, this is the bar you want to be buying, okay? So let's look here. Throughout all these cluster setups, which ones close in the bottom half? Well, this one doesn't. This one doesn't. It closed in about the top third. This one did as well. This one also closed near the high. This one closed in the top third. Ah, look at this one. Closed in the bottom half. In fact, it closed near its low. So that qualifies as a buy for the cluster, okay? Now, as we look at this one right here, if we measure the range from top to bottom, even though it closed up on the day, it actually closed right around the 50% level, which qualifies as a buy if you want. So that's another buy right there. And then this last one actually closed in the top portion, so it doesn't qualify. So you had 2 areas out of these 8 that you could have purchased, all right? And then we see we had a nice little bounce right there, okay? Do you see how simple that is? Now, let's look at it from the other point of view. If you want to sell, let's look at United Airlines once again. We have 2 clusters here, all right? A mini cluster here and another mini cluster here. So which signals should we be taking? Well, once again, in a sell setup, your bar will be below the signal bar, okay? Now, what you want to do is cut that in half by 50%. And if you close above that 50% level, then it's okay to sell. Now, you may want to sell on the close. Perhaps you'd want to place a limit order at the very high, or maybe somewhere up here at your own discretion. That's entirely up to you. But a bar that closes in the top half of its range is considered a valid signal bar to sell, a valid cluster setup bar to sell. So as we look here, let's go through the clusters. Between these 2, which one closed in the top half? Obviously, this one did, the first one. So that's the one you'd want to sell. Now, nothing much happened for 2 or 3 days. Then it started to go back up. Out of this second mini cluster, which ones closed in the top half? Well, this one didn't, but actually this one did. So you could have had 2 chances to enter to go short United Airlines. Roughly at this time, basically you could have gotten short around 81. And look what happened in the next month. The stock was trading around 21. 60 points, okay? Now remember, it's not just enough to see a cluster. You can say, well, Steve, I'm going to start trading this on some other strategy I have or something that I made up on my own that generates these clusters. So far, they haven't been working, but maybe I'll try this. Remember, clusters will be generated all the time with some type of pullback method that buys counter trend. But just because you have cluster setups, it doesn't not mean that the signals are going to be valid. You need a high probability strategy that generates those cluster setups, okay? So please, it's not enough just to have cluster setups around you. I know a lot of you would say, wow, well, my strategy generates these all the time. I'm going to start doing this and make tons of money. Doesn't mean you will. You have to have a strategy that's able to generate these high probability setups in the first place. Now, this is where we come into the second portion, where we're going to be talking about strategy number 9. This is the strategy we've been sharing with you, and that will show you a lot more signals in the remaining portion of this presentation. Let me give you a little bit of insight into strategy number 9. It's a proprietary pullback method, obviously, where we buy low and we sell high. In other words, we're buying low in an overall uptrend. We're selling high in an overall downtrend. Now, you can apply this to any market, any time frame, any direction. Now, we're just going to be focusing on stocks today, but trust me, you can use this. We have currency pair traders using this. We even have Bitcoin traders using this. Because we buy low and sell high, it makes it a perfect strategy to trade if you're an option timer. Why? Well, obviously, options are expensive because of the premiums. If you're wanting to sell, wouldn't you rather sell as the stock is going higher? Wouldn't you rather get a signal when the stock is going higher? That means the premium is going to be much less, right? Or wouldn't you want to buy if the stock is going much lower? The premium is going to be less. So it makes it perfect if you're an option trader. Now, this is not an option class. We're not going to, in the class, tell you which option to buy. We're not going to tell you, go into that, because we're not option traders. Now, we just give you, as educators, we provide you with high probability setups. We show you where these areas are. How you decide to trade is entirely up to you. If you want to apply them to futures, well, we're not going to tell you which futures are best, which ones you should trade. If you want to trade options, we're not going to tell you how to apply them with options. That's up to you. As educators, we're simply telling you where these high probability setups are, okay? Please learn the strategy first. If you're going to become a student of mine, learn all of our strategies first and then paper trade, because there's so much more you can learn through paper trading. All our methods, all our strategies, all our techniques are very high in consistency. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that it produces tons of winners? No, it means that you will have losses from time to time. That's okay, because usually you are able to make back those losses, most likely sooner than later. So that's what a consistent method is. You want to be trading a consistent method. What is the opposite of a consistent method? Well, it's a home run method, one that shoots for the moon, one that says, hey, we had a trade here where we made 50 points last week. Those are great, and I won't, be lying to you. Every once in a while, strategy number 9 will hit some home runs, as you just saw. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to become consistent, because consistency will sustain you, all right? A fly-by-night method, one that promises the world, sure, we'll have some great home runs every once in a while, but usually, because you're hitting those home runs, you also will carry a lot of risk, and you're able to give it all back. Remember, I told you when I first started trading, I would do well for a couple of trades and then I'd give it all back. That's because I had more of a gambling mentality. I wanted to make a big score. I wanted to hit the jackpot. That's not what sustains you. What sustains you is a consistent method, a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach. And all of our methods are highly consistent. All right, so just a few of the highlights about strategy number 9. I can't go into detail. It really only has about 3 rules. It's extremely simple. So let me just share with you some of the process behind strategy number 9. I apologize. I can give you one of the indicators, though, because rule 1 states that it employs 2 simple indicators. Their relationship to the price will automatically produce or generate the signals. Now, one of the indicators I can share with you, that's the 50-period moving average. So in other words, we use that as our buy-sell line. We will only have buy signals generated if price is above the 50, all right? Sell signals will only be generated below the 50, all right? This gives us a higher level of consistency. This is how we determine the overall trend. Now, in an overall uptrend, buy signals will be generated during a decline. In an overall downtrend, sell signals will be generated during a rally. This is the process of a pullback method, okay? Now, let's look at some very current or recent signals generated by strategy number 9 using these type of setups here that are cluster setups. Remember, everything you're going to be seeing right now, you'll be able to do yourself once you become a student of the PTS Primo Charting Platform. It's the educational platform that actually teaches you how to trade these cluster setups. Okay, so let's look at some current strategy number 9 examples. Let's look at COP, all right? ConocoPhillips. Obviously, someone looking at this that trades with conventional wisdom would say, Steve, once again, we're in a downtrend. But let's click on strategy number 9 on our PTS Primo Charting Platform in the green strategy tab. Because though you may think it's a downtrend, let's see if it's generating signals. Now, even though we teach you what to look for, here's how to check your work. You would click this on, click on signal arrows, and you'll see if you were right. And yes, you were. You have 1, 2, and 3 signals generated. So this qualifies as a mini cluster. And a lot of students, this is where you use your own discretion. Sometimes they say, well, Steve, if I just have one in between, I'll still say that this third setup is part of the major cluster here. It's up to you. But let's just use our rule again now. So since we're buying, we want to look for bars that close in the bottom half of the range. So is this first cluster setup closing in the bottom half of its range? No. So we're not going to buy that one. Is this second one closing in the bottom half of its range? Yes. So that's our buy, and so is this one. This closes in the bottom half. Now, if you wanted to be more conservative, then you would say, you know what, I'm not going to take the second signal. I'll just stick with this. Either way, you had a nice buy there, roughly around 39, and the stock went up roughly about 6 or 7 points in the next week or so. All right, see how simple this is? Let's look at BABA, all right? This was coming into December. Obviously, it had a really nice run up here. Most people would say, hey, the market's going sky high. We just got to keep buying this. Well, it was in an overall downtrend. And all the way up, you think it's generating strategy number 9 sell signals. So to check your work, you click on strategy number 9. In the drop-down menu, click on signal arrows. And guess what? You're right. Now, on top of that, you have a cluster. So which ones do you take? Well, you want to take those setups that were closing in the top half. As you see here, did this one close in the top half? No. Did this one close in the top half? Yes. So you could sell that one. Did this one close in the top half? Yes. So you have a total of 1 and then 2, and this one closed in the bottom portion. So you could take either 2 of these signals if you wanted to, roughly about 278. And coming into December, BABA fell all the way down to 213 roughly, all right? About 60 points. Let's look at ACN. This was in the middle of December, just about a month ago. You have a mini cluster here of 2 buy signals. They both closed in the bottom half of their range. And the stock went roughly from 246 all the way to 271, okay? So in roughly about a week, you made a nice little 25 points there. MCD, McDonald's, all right? You have a cluster here, a mini cluster of 2. Therefore, if they're sell signals, you want to have them close in the top 50%. Well, this one didn't, but this one did. Even though you measure from top to bottom, it closed lower. It closed right around the half period mark. So you could have sold right here, roughly at 219. The stock goes down to 206. Okay, nice 13 points in about a couple of weeks. All right, you have another mini cluster here of JP Morgan in mid-December. So what you would want to do then, if you're trading a pullback method, if it generates the first signal, and you know it has a high propensity for generating these clusters, then you wait to see if a second signal is generated. And if you want to wait more, you wait even longer. But as you wait for that second signal, then you look to see which ones close in the top portion. So obviously, this one closed halfway. This one didn't. So you could have gone back and said, well, since we have the cluster, I'll just buy based on this first one. And either way, you had a nice trade. It went from 120 to up to 138, basically 18 points in about 3 weeks. As we look at AMT, here's how you can take multiple signals, all right? You had your first cluster right here. Remember, even if you separate it by 1 day, this is a discretionary way of looking at it, but that still can qualify as a cluster if you want. If you want to be more precise, you could say, well, no, Steve, I only take the ones that are right next to each other. That's okay. It's up to you. Remember, this is not a system. As I said in the opening statement, you have to make your own decision. This is not something that's written in stone and it's like, no, you have to follow exactly the way I trade. It's up to you. I want you to make your own decisions, to experiment and to research and say, you know what? It's okay for me if I wait, if there are intervals of every other one. That still qualifies as a cluster. Or if someone else says, no, I want to have the trades that are right next to each other, that's fine as well. Either way, you have to decide. So let's say you decided that this was a cluster. Well, did the first one close in the top half? No, the second one did. And that's a nice trade, roughly from 246 all the way down to 226. So you've got like a nice 20-point gain there you could have potentially taken advantage of. Now, as with all nice runs, all of a sudden you have a nice little counter trend. Now, this was not the beginning of a bounce to the upside, a brand new uptrend. This was actually another counter trend, another pullback scenario. So 3 more sells were generated. Which one should we take? Well, the last one was the only one that closed in the top portion of its range. And then it went roughly from 241 all the way down to 216. So from 41 down to 16, you have another 25 points you could have made, okay? Now remember, I know a lot of you are saying, well, Steve, where would I get out though? How, you're saying like I would get out at the very low? No, remember, the exits are part of the course. We teach you upwards of 7 different ways to exit. Now, some of these students who took these cluster setups would say, hey, listen, I'm going to take a couple of points and I'm going to say thank you and get out. There's nothing wrong with that. They decided to choose one of our different exit patterns and they decided to go with that, where someone could say, no, I'm going to try and get as much bang for my buck and go for 25 points. There's nothing wrong with either one. Remember, the only thing wrong is when you decide to let someone tell you how to exit. So we teach you these high probability setups. We teach you ways to enter, as I'm doing right now. This is just one of the ways. We teach you different ways to place your stop and different ways to exit, but that's all in the course. All right, so let's go through the process here once again, okay? Looking at BIDU. All right, once again, well, it kind of looks like we're kind of drifting lower. Really not a direction here. If I had to say anything, we're kind of in a slow downtrend, right? But remember, we want these downtrends as long as we're in an overall uptrend. So this is not really the beginning of a downtrend. This is just a pullback because we teach you how to identify if this is actually in an overall uptrend. And according to what we teach you, yes, this is not a downtrend, it's a pullback. So there's an opportunity here to buy. Now, what we taught you in the course, you start to look and you go, you know what? I think there's some buy signals here generated from strategy number 9. So check your work. You click on strategy number 9 in the upper green strategy tab here on our platform. The drop-down menu appears. Click on signal arrows, and you'll see if you're learning how to properly identify these setups. Guess what? There are. In fact, there's a cluster. So you say to yourself, which ones should I have taken here? Well, the first 4 setups, I should say, of this cluster all closed in the bottom. So these are all valid buys. I should say, I'm sorry, the first 3. This one didn't and this one did. So you would have bought somewhere around here. Remember, if you wanted to wait for the cluster, most likely after this one, you would have purchased on the second one right here, roughly about 140. And you could have purchased again, roughly about 137 or so. Okay? Well, either one would have been a great buy because the stock gained over 100 points in just 1 month based on that cluster. Remember, when you see a bunch of signals, if you have a poor strategy, that's actually a detriment to your trading. That's actually not going to work out well. But if you have a very high probability strategy, it's in your favor to see these clusters. They're a really nice signpost telling you that most likely there's going to be a really good run happening here. And we just taught you one of the ways in which to enter. Okay, so let's review really quickly here. Remember, cluster setups are multiple strategy signals, generally considered to be high probability setups that are generated in a consecutive manner, one after another. If you have a very good strategy, these are things you look for. If you have a faulty strategy, if it doesn't perform very well, if it only works in one market or one direction, you'll see these clusters and they'll actually won't work at all. The way to work with these clusters is to use a strategy that is really grounded in high probability, and that's strategy number 9. It's our proprietary pullback method. You buy low or sell high in the overall up or down trends. You can apply to any market, any time frame, in any direction. It's great for option traders, as you just saw. Why? Because if it's selling off, if price is declining in an overall uptrend, that's where you want to buy some calls or some type of spread with a bias to the upside, and vice versa for the downside. You really save a lot of money on these premiums. But remember, all our students are required, I say required, to paper trade first. Why? Because you'll learn so much more. Think of any hobby, any career, any endeavor. You never just jump into it. Say an Olympic swimmer doesn't say, well, you know, I didn't train or I didn't work out. I'm just going to go to the Olympics and swim and just see how I do. Or an actor says, well, you know, I didn't rehearse. I didn't read my lines. I didn't really know what the script is about. I'm just going to go start acting and figure out, see how it goes. Or, you know, anyone in anything, an athlete, they always have a rehearsal or a practice period first. It's no different with trading. You have to paper trade first to fully understand the process and get it under your belt. All of our methods, all of our techniques, all of our strategies are based in consistency. Remember, that's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back approach. The 1 step back means that you are aware you will have losses. That's okay. But the 2 steps forward is an ability to recoup those losses. All right, so ask yourself, do you think these cluster setups can help your trading going into 2021? Well, we have a great offer for all of you attending today to take time out of your Wednesday morning. We're going to offer you our Super Pullback and Cluster Setup Special. This is strategy number 9, which I just went over with you, along with the PTS Primo Charting Platform. You're going to get instant access. You're going to learn all the different ways to enter. I just shared with you one of them right now, but there are tons more different ways to enter, different ways to exit, and different stop placement. Remember, we provide you with all this information so that you can decide how you want to trade. 2 traders should never trade alike. You have to get the information and the knowledge and then make your own trading decisions on your own. We're also going to throw in 1 full year of the PTS Primo Charting Platform. Remember, everything you saw today was displayed coming from the PTS Primo Charting Platform. Now, this is the educational platform that auto-generates these cluster setups for you. Here's another thing I didn't talk about before. Remember I said that the way you define these, one of these ways of entering is by either buying in the bottom half or selling in the top half of the signal. Well, guess what? On the platform, we've automatically generated those halfway points for you. All you have to do is click on the strategy number 9, the buy up or down arrow, and it will generate those halfway points. So there's nothing you have to calculate and say, gosh, I got to get my hand calculator. Where's the halfway point? I have to hurry up if I'm trading intraday. It automatically is generated for you. So right here, we closed below. This could have been a buy, and we closed below here. This one, we closed above. So you had 2 opportunities to buy. And look what happened in VLO coming into January, okay? Same thing with the sell side, okay? Well, in the heat of the battle, you can't be figuring out with your hand calculator, where's the halfway point? Did it close there? We automatically generate these halfway points for you so you can decide on your own. You could have sold this one based off that at that level, and look what happened, okay? This all comes with the platform, along with dozens more techniques, dozens more ways of discerning what the trend is, ways in finding out when the trend is about to end, scanning for these signal setups, scanning for these clusters, just a ton of information, things that have taken me 4 decades to accumulate that you won't find anywhere else are on our platform. And trust me, a year from today, you will have wished you became a member of the Strategy Number 9 course, along with 1 full year of the platform. So take advantage of our Super Pullback and Cluster Setup Special. Now, normally, this would cost you close to $4,800, okay? Strategy number 9 being one of our most consistent pullback methods, along with a full year of the platform. Well, we're going to discount today for all the people attending, and we're dropping that price down to $29.95. You're going to be saving over $1,700. That comes with 1 full year of the platform, but on top of that, we're going to throw in payment plans. So if $29.95 is still too much for you to come up with 1 lump sum, you can establish a small deposit with Pro Trader Strategies. They're in charge of all the discounts and payments. For a small deposit, you can still be up and running with a payment plan established with them. So there's lots of ways to take your trading to the next level. You don't have to worry about dishing out $29.95 if you don't want to. You can still put a small deposit and be up and running as early as today. All right, here's how to take advantage of this. Contact Pro Trader Strategies. They're in charge of all the discounts, all the tech support. They're in charge of establishing a payment plan. I would strongly suggest, as I always do, giving them a call at 310-598-6677. They have trading consultants manning the phones right now that would be more than happy to give you an estimate, work through a payment plan with you so you can think about it and come up with your own idea of what you want to pay. It's a great way to come on board. Now, the link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the sign-up page if you want to sign up online or you want to get more information. It's not a live link. You'd have to copy and paste that onto your browser, but we've posted a live link in the chat box, in the GoToWebinar chat box. So if you go to the chat box there in the far right-hand corner, all you have to do is click that on, and it will take you to the information page, okay? Now, remember, I said questions at the very end. We reserve the last 15 or 20 minutes for questions. If you happen to have any, now's the time. Just go to your question and answer box, and I'll promise I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I'm going to leave this information up here, so if you have any questions, or if you want to write this information down, all you have to do is write it down there, okay? First question, where do you set your stops in case it's more than a pullback? Great question. Unfortunately, I can't really give you that information because that's part of the course. Remember, I said I was going to share with you just the entries for the clusters, but that's part of the course, and it just wouldn't be fair to give away the rules that a lot of our students have paid over $4,700 for already. Remember, you're getting this at an extremely great discount along with a full year of the platform, where most of the students paid over $4,700 just for the course rules. So it just wouldn't be fair. All I can tell you is that in the course, we give you upwards of 7 different stop placement techniques. So if you like to take very minimal risk, we show you where and how to do that. If you don't mind taking a large portion of risk, if you feel totally comfortable with that, we show you how to do that as well. So we have roughly about 7 different stop placements. We also have stop placements for if you want to track the trade. If it's going in your direction, how you can raise your stop and let ultimately the trade take you out. We also have upwards of 7 different entry points. I just explained one of the different ideas for you today. We have roughly about 7 more, okay? And we have 7 different exits as well. So I'm sorry, I just can't give away that information, but it's very basic, and also it's going to be there so that you can decide for yourself. Someone's asking, can I use this on my own platform? Yes, I believe you'd have to contact Pro Trader Strategies. I believe they will give you the add-on if you want to have the up and down signals, the arrows, the up and down arrows, signal arrows generated. Let's say you have TradeStation or Metastock or MT4 or NinjaTrader or Thinkorswim or Sierra charts. But trust me, you're going to get so much more just using the platform. Most of our students continue to hold on to their major platform, the one they enter their trades through or the ones they look at their charts with, but they also have the PTS Primo Charting Platform to use to generate their signals and as an educational tool to help them learn and figure out exactly how to trade. And then once they've generated the trade and they see exactly what they want to do, then they just toggle over to their main platform and then just enter the trade through them. Okay, so it's really simple. But once again, I would really focus on using the PTS Primo Charting Platform because it just doesn't come with strategy number 9. As we stated, you're going to get those 50% level points where you can decide if it closes above or below. You're also going to get another way to define where to enter your trade. That's on there. We call those entry levels. Also going to get stop placement auto-defined on the platform. You're also going to get an exit auto-defined on the platform. So these are all just one click away. You won't find them on any other platform. All right. And on top of that, you're going to get like a dozen more tips and techniques and tools that you'll only find on the platform. So this is really a fantastic deal. I really urge you to take advantage of this. And remember, you do not have to come up with a full payment just to be a student. Someone is saying, you say unlimited educational correspondence. What does that mean? Okay, well, what that means is you get my private email address, okay? So you can contact me whenever you'd like. So let's say you have a question on a Saturday night. You've been looking at the charts all day. You love it. It's really helping you, but you have a question. If you email me Saturday, most likely I will be answering your email Sunday morning, okay? I'm always answering my students' emails because we take pride in trying to really educate you. So you will have educational correspondence with yours truly via email. And anytime you want to ask a question or contact me with something, you always have access to through my email. So this is something that goes to all of my students, regardless of what strategy you have or what method or technique. Okay. So these are another great way of learning. Remember, most systems or websites that claim to promise the moon, they give you the the download. You have to put it on your computer and say, good luck. We'll contact our tech support if you have trouble figuring out what to do, and then you can't even get through to them. We answer all of our students as soon as we can. We have a great tech support department. Most of our students have sent back tremendous testimonials about the tech support saying, gosh, everything was uploaded on my computer through your tech support in the first day. It was done seamlessly and explained to me how to use it. So it's really a testament to how much we really want to educate you and be with you for the long haul. So take advantage of this, and you can really take your trading to the next level, as I said before. Someone's asking, where's the link again? Lynn is asking. Well, Lynn, if you go to the go to webinar page, the column on the far right, you'll see a little title there that says chat with a down arrow next to it. If you open that up, there is a link posted there. That's a live link, okay? And you can just click that on, and you'll be able to go right to the sign up page or the information page, okay? There's just so much information here we want to share with you, and this really is a great price. Remember, you're saving. Gosh, I mean, that's I believe it was like the original price was $47. I believe you're saving like over $1,700 or $1,800, right? Maybe more. Let me just go back to that because I'm thinking of the numbers. Yeah, you're going to be saving roughly over $1,700. So this is a really great offer. You're getting all these things. This also, as I say here, includes a scanner. So you can scan on a nightly basis for strategy number 9 cluster setups. This is the beauty of this, all right? It really is just tons of information here, and all of our testimonials about the platform. It's just so simple to scan, so simple to use. Okay, so going back to the page there, all you have to do is go to the GoToWebinar chat box, and you'll see that the link is right there, okay? Okay, if there are no more questions, I just hope you learned a little bit about cluster setups, seeing how powerful they are. But remember, in order to really be able to trade with them and work them to your benefit, you need a strategy that's able to produce these high probability cluster setups. And the way you can do that is through strategy number 9, okay? Strategy number 9 is a high probability method, but it also generates these cluster signals, and we just share with you today on how to trade with them. Just because you have cluster setups does not mean that you will have a profitable signal. You have to have a high probability strategy, and that's what we're offering you today with strategy number 9, okay? As we look one last time at our disclaimer, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your Wednesday to join us for this educational presentation. But most of all, I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the strategy number 9 course, along with a full year of the platform. Thank you so much for attending today. I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.